The Smurg by Jessiy, read by Alex Mabella. Chapter 8. Hermione felt badass in her black ninja outfit as she cased the perimeter of the camp at Normangard. She blew an errant curl out of her eyes, frustrated. The wards had recently been strengthened, and even with her prodigious knowledge of wards, it was not enough to break through without alerting Grindelwald's followers. "Damn," she whispered, chewing on her bottom lip, scoring her brain for any sort of idea. She had already cased the perimeter, hoping to find even one chink in the magic. "I guess there's only one more thing to try." Hermione took a step back and closed her eyes, trying desperately to remember the years of sharing a dorm with the two most self-important teenage witches she knew, Parvati and Lavender, both who spent their 6th year studying the intricate art of beauty spells, something that never interested Hermione greatly. She learned all the basic hygiene spells along with the householding spells that came in handy while they were on the run, but there were always more important things to take up her time, like keeping Harry alive. For this, she needed to smooth and define her wild curls, give her face a natural and yet contoured look, and a dress to kill. With the twirl of her wand, reminiscent of Cinderella's fairy godmother, her black ninja clothes turned into a classy black number that she had remembered her mother wearing once. A classic Versace, or some such thing. The makeup spell was easy enough, as she remembered watching with annoyance as Lavender took an extra 5 minutes to apply it, hogging the toilet and mirror every morning before class. It was her hair, always the hair, that gave her troubles, and no matter how she racked her brain, there was no help for it. It would smooth and curl beautifully for 7 seconds before fizzing back as if she were still in patience class, hunched over a steaming cauldron. Finally she nodded her defeat and made do with a messy chignon, hoping it would be classy enough to be believable. With another nod to herself, she apparated back to the edge of the clearing where the makeshift apparition point was placed. "Oh!" she stammered breathlessly, falling into the arms of one of Grindelwald's lieutenants. She looked up at the stunned man through her eyelashes and smiled. "Thank you." She stood up and looked down, trying to force a blush into her face before looking back up. The soldier was young, even younger than she, barely of legal age, she guessed. "Are you okay, miss?" "Clumsy me. It's not easy to apparate in these shoes, especially since I've been in them for quite some time. I'm afraid I've been stood up." She tittered nervously, mentally berating herself. She sounded hideous. It would surprise the hell out of her if he believed her weak story. "And you're here because?" the soldier asked. Hermione drew her brows together and bit her bottom lip. "My brother is in camp and I need a friendly face right now." "Who is your brother?" She narrowed her eyes, mentally cursing her bad luck at finding a soldier who was not directly in his duties. Perhaps it was only Voldemort's regime that was lackadaisical. "It's fine, Lieutenant Vogel. She is with me," a deeply amused female voice said from behind Hermione. Hermione turned, planting a smile on her lips to thank a woman, and came face to face with Winda Rosier, the witch who seduced and spied and led countless Aurors to their death during Grindelwald's revolution. Hermione's left eye twitched with anxiety, remembering the exact book that recited this woman's war crime. Espionage, seducing their enemies for information, murder with her silk sheets. She was rumored to be Grindelwald's concubine, sent into the enemy camp. Hermione swallowed. The photograph that was included in the book did no justice to this woman whatsoever. As beautiful as Helen of Troy was purported to be, Winda Rosier was her equal. Winda slid her arm across her shoulders and pulled Hermione in as if they were the very best of friends. An enigmatic smile slid over her features, and her scarlet lips rested a whisper from Hermione's ear. "You are exceptionally bold, Hermione, to show up here at the base of operations while the man himself presides from his tent. He said you would come. He also said you would walk right in through the front door. What can you mean, showing up here dressed like that?" Hermione stiffed under the other woman and hissed, "You know who I am. I know who you are. Leave me here, while you still have a chance." "He said you were a firecracker." Winda chuckled. "Don't you have somewhere else to be? His bed, perhaps?" Hermione tried to pull away, tried to get her wand, all the while cursing herself. She should have had a palm on it the whole time. Did years and years of war teach her nothing? Where was the constant vigilance now? Vinda threw her head back and laughed, dragging Hermione along with her. My sweet temptress, I am more likely to be in your bed than his. Hermione's jaw dropped. Shocked? Yes, Hermione said honestly. Why? Because you sleep with men to gather intelligence for Grindelwald. Vinda pulled the both to a halt, a look of incredulous rage suffusing her face. Where would you have get such an idea from? Hermione's mouth snapped shut, wondering how she could be so stupid. The book said that Vinda was one of the best spies, so good in fact that they never got any definitive evidence, only circumstantial. It led to her execution in the end anyway, but there was always that doubt. This was something that was not common knowledge of this time, not for either side. It was very likely that the only people who knew for sure what she was were Grindelwald and herself. So how could Hermione explain her knowledge? A woman does not look like that, dress like that, and join a rebellion with only the calling of a foot soldier in her blood. You look like a spy, and you look like you could be a damn good one too. It would be foolish to underestimate you just because you are a woman. I like you, she said, forcing Hermione back into a walk. I can see your allure. You will not be able to resist that. Je ne sais quoi. There is just something about you that makes me want to chase your fire. They strolled through the camp, seemingly unnoticed, and stopped before an unremarkable medium-sized tent. Vinda snorted, amused at something Hermione could only guess at, and pushed Hermione inside ahead of her. Grindelwald looked up from his desk, where he was writing, wearing only a pair of grey sleeve trousers and an open black silk robe, leaving his muscular but not cut figure bare to Hermione's gaze. Thank you, Vinda. Leave us. Vinda nodded, and Hermione watched as she left the tent. Vinda glanced back at Hermione only once, a longing look in her eye. Or maybe she was looking at Grindelwald. It was hard to say. Once they were alone, Grindelwald leisurely rolled the parchment he had been writing on and sealed it with a tap of his wand. I knew you would come, he said, his attention on his desk as he worked to clear it. Hermione tried to take a glimpse at the content but failed as everything just seemed too blurry. It was like Muffliato but for the eyes. She blinked several times to clear her vision, but it only cleared after she looked away. Vinda said you were expecting me. How did you know I would come? Dumbledore took his bride on a honeymoon, leaving you free to carry out your terms of your vow. Of course you would come to me. You would never shirk any promise or duty. You think you know me so well. I know you better than you think, and still less than I would like, he said, rounding his desk to stand toe-to-toe with her at the entrance. There is something about you that makes me believe that you harbor the greatest of secrets, a secret that could unequivocally change this war in my favor. Are you afraid because you think you're not winning? The whole world is against me now, he said almost bitterly. It is a true tragedy that they cannot see that everything I do for the betterment of wizard-kind. Perhaps it is your methods they oppose, Hermione murmured. If that were all, they would have begun negotiating new terms. Maybe they don't want to negotiate methods with a man willing to commit any atrocity in the name of wizards, for the greater good. You are talented. Changing the subject so subtly, but I will not forget that you have this air about you, a mysterious existence. Where are you from? Why has no one heard of you? Why are you close to Albus Dumbledore when he has never let another get so close to his personal life? What role does Moreau Gaunt play in all of this, and why, for the love of Merlin, have the goblins of Gringotts taken your side? The last is the most perplexing. Albus and I did extensive research on the Hogwarts founders when we were but lads, and I know for a fact that the Slytherin name, if not the line, died out hundreds of years ago. So, how did you come by the name? And most importantly, why have the goblins acquired it to give you the vault when no one else had been able to claim it? He ran the pads of his fingers lightly over the bare skin of her arm, watching with satisfaction as goosebumps raced in their wake. What? Do you expect me to answer your questions? She snorted, ignoring how near he was and how underdressed. You can keep wondering if there is or isn't something about me. I don't care. Really? He smirked. Really? She said and took a step forward and turned around, walking back until her bum hit the desk. She sat back on it and crossed her legs, watching his eyes as they followed the line of her exposed legs. Tell me something about you that I don't know. He licked his lips, eyes still trained on her legs. Why should I? Quid pro quo. Not interested, thanks. Why not? I'm an unforgettable man. Everything that I need to know about you I already do. Albus has a big mouth. Hermione shrugged. Let Dumbledore take the fall for her knowledge. It was better than admitting the truth, that she was a time traveler from the future, where he was 3-week course study in Bin's History of Magic class. What would it take to learn of one of the many secrets of Hermione Slytherin? Stop the war. He chuckled. You think your secrets are that valuable? The goblins thought so. You've got to give me something. For nothing? I don't think so. It's obvious you won't stop. Not for nothing. Make me an offer. The plans for Normangard. For such a lofty price, he said, he sinuously walked across the tent to his desk and Hermione. I will need something much more than just a secret. I thought this is what you were, trading in. My secrets. You are too clever by half. If I bargain for secrets alone, I will end up the loser in our negotiations. What do you want? He placed his palms on the desk on either side of her body and leaned over her, lips inches from lips. You know what I want, he whispered. Neither one of us trusts the other enough to follow through on such deals. Why strike a bargain at all? Why did you make the vow with Albus? He asked, ignoring her last comment. Why are you so set on this war? She countered. You are a cruel woman. And you are a criminal, a renegade wizard, bent on the destruction of life as we know it, using any means that come to you. Perhaps that is why we have so much chemistry, you and I. I was always attracted by the mysterious, the puzzle, the power, the Deathly Hallows. He scowled. Albus really has let you into his confidence. How curious. Gellert pursed his lips, thinking. Their eyes met, and Hermione's body heated in response to the darkly aroused look in his eyes. Stay the night with me. That might kill me. Now, who's being dramatic? He sighed and pushed off the desk, turning around so that his back was to Hermione. You don't know the exact terms of my vow. You don't know what would and wouldn't kill me. Accio, he whispered, as a tiny scroll shot from the piles of paper on his desk into his hand. He unrolled it with his thumb and forefingers, reading as he went. I, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, vow to marry Merope Gaunt, if she so chooses, providing for her and any children she will bear for the entirety of my life. I, Hermione Jean Granger Slytherin, vow to stop Gellert Grindelwald in his plans of wizard domination and any other nefarious plans he has concocted to the best of my abilities, as long as the first vow has been met. Sound familiar? Let the scroll roll in on itself and banished it back to where it had come from, zooming under the piles of parchment. You have very good spies, Hermione said. Why is Merope Gaunt important to you? So important that you would agree to hunt me down when all others have failed. She is like a sister to me. She wasn't always. When you first arrived in London, you were alone. It wasn't until later that you pulled Merope from that hellhole of her father's. Hermione sat there, stone-faced, refusing to give anything away. No, not going to answer that either. What could you possibly offer me that would tempt me to give up Normangard? I know where all the Deathly Hallows are. He whipped around, and for the first time he was drowning in uncertainty. And you would tell me? I would tell you 2 out of the 3. The Elder Wand and the Resurrection Stone. Why not the cloak? That is a different secret. 2 out of 3 Hallows for the blueprints? Not just the blueprints, but an unbreakable vow that you will never even build Normangard. It's not enough. You would only be giving me 1 Hallow. Because you already have the wand. Yes. He sat with a little smile, not surprised in the least that she knew he had it. How she knew? Well, that was something he was dying to know. I still cannot give you information about the cloak. Then I will be here, poring over my blueprints, waiting to break ground of this incredible prison. Hermione shrugged and hopped down, pulling her skirt down her thigh, smoothing the fabric over her hips. Out of the corner of her eye, she watched as his own gaze was preoccupied at the path of her hands. You are just going to leave? Didn't you come here to bargain? He dragged his stare off her and down to his own body. He shrugged out of the silk robe and hung it on the rack of the side, pulling on a white button-down. It was agonizing watching him do up the buttons. When he went to push down his sleeve pants, she turned around blushing hard as he laughed at her expense. "You want something I can't give you. Albus is the only one I trust with my secrets. You, I don't trust, and I don't expect that to change," she answered. Gellert slapped his hand against a small table that was near, fury pouring off him in waves. "Albus Dumbledore is the last man you should trust." "I know," she said evenly, turning back around, glad and yet mildly disappointed that he already had black trousers on. She shook her head. What lewd thoughts was she thinking? "You are infuriating," he shouted, stalking her across his tent. She wondered if she had gone too far in baiting him with Albus, and backed up until she was flush against the wooden post of his bed and could retreat no farther. "At least I'm honest about what I want and what I believe. I fight for things that I want to change. He is a coward, a manipulative bastard who only cares for himself, and you married your sister to him." "Don't you dare," Hermione said in a low voice, finger pointing in his face. "Don't presume to tell me about my choices." "Why do you have so much faith in him? What does he have over you?" "I know him. I already knew him before I came to London. I have known him for most of my life," she shouted back, chest heaving. "And yet he didn't know anything about you until after you showed up in London," he challenged. Hermione paled. Had she given too much away? What did he think he knew? "Answer my next question. Stay the night with me, and I will give you Ermengarde." "What is your question?" "What is the importance of Merope Gaunt?" "I can't answer that." "Can't or won't?" "Won't." "I see. As long as you are Grindelwald, leader of this war, I can never trust you. You and I are enemies." "So you keep saying, and yet here you are, inches from my bed, trying to make deals." "If I give you tonight," she began hesitantly, "I want Ermengarde." "And the Hollow. Tonight and the Hollow, and Ermengarde is yours." Hermione nodded. Gellert grinned and leaned in, whispered against her lips. "Thank you." "The blueprints?" "Not until you have delivered on your end of the deal." "The resurrection stone is with Dumbledore, but he does not know it. I have planted it there for its protection. I know he seeks them as well, but he won't recognize it for what it truly is." "You naughty girl, teasing me with information, and now I have no way of getting it. Bad form, darling," he said disapprovingly. "I will put the blueprints under a time-release spell that once your obligations have been filled will be yours." With a flick of the elder wand, a parchment tube sailed through the air and attached itself to the canvas of the side of the tent. It was surrounded by twinkling blue orb that would disappear once Grindelwald felt terms had been met. Hermione knew she couldn't weasel out of the night as she planned, hoping to claim that staying the night was the only thing required. But you could see that Grindelwald was just as clever as Albus, and there would be no twisting of words to avoid carrying out the promise. He reached for her again and cupped her cheek, smirking as if he knew something she didn't. This time she didn't pull away. He brought his lips to hers, savoring how soft she was beneath him. "Come," he said, pulling back from her and taking her hand within his own, tugging her out through the front flap of the tent. Hermione was understandably confused. Sex could be had anywhere, so why was he tugging her through his camp? From the front of the tent, one of the guards followed them, but with a small head gesture from Gellert, he backed off, falling back to his post at the tent. "Here we go," Gellert said as he pulled Hermione and close to his chest. Hermione buried her face in his robes and closed her eyes. Sight-along apparition had never been her favorite mode of travel. "Where are we going?" she gasped. The moment her feet touched the ground and her insides settled back to their proper places. "I want you to see something." Gellert brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles, keeping their hands twined for the short walk. The moon was full, lighting her way to the small cottage on the edge of a village near the forest. The yellow clapboard was pristine, the white shutters closed for the night. Flowers spilled from the immaculately kept beds. It was a well-loved home. Gellert paused at the door and knocked lightly, waiting for the occupants to awaken and answer his summon. The door swung open on well-oiled hinges, and a woman in her early 20s with braided, dirty blonde hair stood in the doorway, blocking their entrance. "You can't just show up here any time you want. It's not good for us," the woman hissed, not noticing Hermione at her side. "Who pays all of your bills? Who keeps you safe? Who protected you and your brother when you had no one? I will come when I damn well please." "Maybe I should just go," Hermione said, unsure. "You brought a woman to this house," the woman screeched. "We are not an attraction at the zoo." "Ingrid, just let us in, I will explain." "I can't really stop you, can I?" Ingrid moved back, wryly gesturing them into the loving home. "What's wrong, Ingrid?" a little blonde boy asked from the stairs. "Go back to sleep, Leon," Ingrid said softly. "You can come down, Leon," Gellert said over Ingrid. It brought a scowl to her face. Gellert and Hermione sat down on the comfortable couch, and Gellert motioned for the boy to come closer. "Leon, Ingrid, this is Hermione. She doesn't understand the necessity for this war. It is imperative that she understands." Leon nodded and dragged his nightshirt over his head, leaving him standing in his underpants. The second that his skin was exposed, Hermione gasped. On his back were hundreds of tiny circular burn marks. "What happened?" Hermione whispered, horrified. "His muggle father burned him every time he exhibited magic. Keep in mind, he's still not of age to attend a magical school. Leon is only 10.
"Merlin, if it weren't for Ingrid, I would have died. She isn't magic, but she has loads more burns than me. She would hide me, protect me, take the punishment Father intended for me. I don't know what I would have done if my sister hadn't protected me,"
Leon said in a light voice, recounting as if it had happened to someone else. "And you think she would be more grateful that I killed the man and gave them a safe place to stay?" Gellert grumbled. Hermione turned to him, brow arched. "Did it ever occur to you that vengeance was theirs to exact? Getting them away would have been sufficient, yeah?" "I walked in on him branding them with a hot iron. Clemency was the last thought on my mind," Gellert said incredulously. "I admit I would find it hard not to retaliate as well. Let me ask you this. Is this the only reason you believe muggles should be subjugated? I don't want to downplay their tragedy, but not all muggles are abusive towards magical children." "And you know this for a fact?" "I do," she said firmly, and he studied her, obviously trying to figure out. "There are thousands of stories like Leon's, hundreds of children that are worse off, children who develop severe trauma to their magic. Do they not need to be saved?" "You are right that the wizarding world needs to change, but you can't see the way that you are going about this is all wrong. You force people to choose between extremes when most people would rather put blinders on." Hermione exhaled loudly. "You have turned nearly the entire world against you, Gellert. What good can you do now?" Ingrid's face relaxed a tiny bit as she reappraised the woman that had been brought to them in the middle of the night. Hermione gently took Leon's nightshirt out of his hand and helped him tug it over his head. "Thank you for showing me, Leon." He smiled at her and was promptly shooed up to his bed by his sister. "Are you satisfied?" Ingrid demanded of Gellert. "I've not convinced you," Gellert murmured to Hermione, chagrined. "It's your methods in which we will never see eye to eye," Hermione answered. Gellert stood, nodding his goodbyes before stalking out of the door, leaving Hermione to trail him at her own pace. "I'm sorry we intruded," Hermione said to Ingrid. "My father was a good man once. He didn't deserve to die the way he did. I wished for many horrible things to happen, but not that. When I imagined justice, I imagined my father having to watch Leon and me from afar as we thrived and flourished without him. I wanted to show Leon that the world was not as ugly as it seemed to be. He is lucky to have you." "Thank you." Hermione smiled and walked outside. Gellert stood in the garden facing away from her, staring at the moon. He was bathed in its silvery light, and he stood there rigid, anger rolling off of him. "What will it take for you to see my side?" he demanded. "I get why. I even agree with it to a certain extent. Not subjugation of the non-magical population, but the things that need to change. But like I said, I don't like your methods. You will never, ever bring me on board." "Is there no chance for this?" "Us?" "Not while you are the most haunted wizard alive." "You don't know what you ask of me. I can't just stop. Not only am I in it up to my neck, I truly believe that what I'm trying to do is right. Without extreme action, nothing will ever change." Hermione swallowed and took a deep breath. "Where to next?" "You want my blueprints that badly?" He sneered, disgusted. "Yes." He shook his head, his nostrils flaring. "No, the deal is off." "That is not how things work, Grindelwald." Hermione walked to him until they were a foot apart. "I've already told you about the Hallow. Don't make me laugh, you told me nothing.
You are acting like a child who didn't get his way. Did you think it would be that easy to convince me? I made a vow to stop you. I am personally invested in stopping you. Did you think I would just say fuck it at the first sob story? Yes, it was sad. Yes, I felt for them. That does not mean things between us would change.
I see things so much clearer now. Thank you for opening my eyes. He glared at her. I'm sure you can find your own way home. He took 3 steps back from her, and with a quick twist on the balls of his feet, he was gone.
Oh, no, you don't,
Hermione said between clenched teeth, and followed him, apparating directly to the apparition point at Normangard. She didn't see him, but that didn't stop her from stomping away through the camp with a single-minded focus. They had bartered and came to an agreement. There was no way in hell she was leaving without those blueprints. The guards standing at attention raised their brows but didn't stop her from entering the tent. Hermione looked around and noticed that she was all alone, and for several seconds pondered where the hell Gellert apparated to. Gritting her teeth, she turned back to the side of the tent where the blueprint still sat innocently enclosed by a magical ward. She raised her wand and painstakingly undid his ward. Admittedly, it took her longer than she anticipated, but even with all that time, Gellert was still absent. The second she had the rolled blueprints in her hand, she stalked from the tent. She had absolutely no intention of being there when he returned. To be continued. Thank you for listening to this chapter of The Smurg by Jessiy, read by Ella Max Mabella. If you would like to stay up to date on upcoming chapters and stories, you can follow me on YouTube, Spotify, AO3, Instagram, or Tumblr.